Why is it that the modern world is so terrified of a man who can sit alone in a quiet room, completely satisfied with his own company? We live in an era that treats solitude as a disease, a defect to be cured with endless notifications, trivial social interactions, and the constant noise of external validation. Yet the ancient Stoics understood a profound and dangerous truth, that the individual who genuinely requires nothing from the crowd is the only one who can never be controlled, manipulated, or broken by it. When you master the art of being alone, you cease to be a pawn in the games of others, and you instead become a formidable force, anchored entirely within your own mind. This is not about isolating yourself out of bitterness or misanthropy, but rather about developing an internal fortress so resilient that no external storm can shake its foundations. It is the realization that your ultimate strength does not come from who stands beside you, but from who you are when everyone else steps away. Consider how much of human suffering stems directly from our desperate, frantic need to be noticed, accepted, and validated by people whose opinions we do not even respect. We twist our personalities, sacrifice our peace of mind, and compromise our deepest values just to fit into spaces where we were never meant to belong. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that the opinions of the masses are as fleeting and unpredictable as the wind. He wrote that it is absurd to seek praise from people who cannot even find peace within themselves. When you learn to sit in silence, you strip away this desperate need for approval, and you begin to cultivate an immunity to the judgment of the world. A person who is perfectly content in their own skin becomes dangerous to the established order because they cannot be bought with flattery, nor can they be intimidated by the threat of social exclusion. They have discovered that the highest authority over their life is not the collective whim of society, but their own reasoned choice. This brings us to the core foundation of all Stoic wisdom, the dichotomy of control, which demands that we draw a sharp, unyielding line between what is up to us and what is not. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and rose to become one of the most revered teachers in the ancient world, taught that our thoughts, our desires, our aversions, and our actions are entirely within our power, while our bodies, our reputations, our wealth, and the behavior of other people are completely outside of it. The average person wastes their life drowning in anxiety because they try to control the external world while completely neglecting the internal domain. They agonize over what others think of them, they curse the weather, and they despair over political shifts, yet they remain utterly helpless against their own fleeting impulses and negative emotions. When you embrace solitude, you finally stop fighting these useless exterior battles. You realize that you cannot force the world to be fair, nor can you compel people to be kind, but you can absolutely control how you respond to their unfairness and unkindness. By withdrawing your emotional investment from things you cannot control, you reclaim an immense amount of psychological energy, channeling it instead into the cultivation of your own character, which is the only true possession you will ever own. To truly weaponize this philosophy, one must understand the immense power of strategic scarcity and deliberate silence. In a culture that demands constant visibility, where everyone feels compelled to broadcast their every thought, meal, and achievement to the digital ether, the person who chooses to disappear becomes an enigma. There is a quiet, terrifying strength in the individual who does not feel the need to explain themselves, who keeps their plans entirely hidden, and who refuses to engage in the petty arguments of the day. When you speak less, your words naturally take on the weight of iron. When you are not constantly available, Your presence becomes a premium, and your absence ceases to be a vulnerability. The Stoics practiced silence not as a punishment, but as a form of rigorous mental hygiene. They understood that every time you react immediately to an insult, a critic, or a provocation, you are handed over your power on a silver platter. You are allowing an external stimulus to dictate your internal state. By choosing silence, by refusing to give your enemies or your circumstances the satisfaction of a reaction, you completely neutralize their leverage over you. You become a black hole into which their malice falls, absorbed and dissolved without leaving a single scratch on your soul. This level of mastery requires a radical, unforgiving form of self-discipline that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. It is the difficult, unglamorous work of conquering your own internal weakness, delaying gratification, and forging an unshakable focus on your long-term goals. Marcus Aurelius would wake up at the break of dawn, facing the monumental task of ruling an empire plagued by war and disease, and he would strictly remind himself that his duty was to act as a human being, not to lounge under warm blankets. He did not wait for motivation to strike, nor did he indulge in self-pity. True discipline is the absolute refusal to let your fluctuating emotions dictate your actions. It is doing what must be done precisely when it needs to be done, regardless of whether you feel inspired, tired, or overwhelmed. When you are alone, away from the watchful eyes of society, your true character is laid bare. It is in those quiet, hidden hours that you either build yourself into a monument of strength or allow yourself to dissolve into comfort and complacency. The dangerous individual uses their solitude to train their mind, to read, to contemplate, and to master their impulses, so that when they finally step back into the arena of public life, they are completely unyielding dot. As you develop this internal discipline, you naturally achieve a state of complete immunity to criticism. To the Stoic, human praise and human condemnation are fundamentally the same. They are merely vibrations in the air, empty noises made by creatures who will be dead and forgotten tomorrow. Why should you care if 1,000 blind men declare that you are ugly, or if they chant that you are beautiful? Their perception does not change the objective reality of what you are. Seneca noted that a wise man is like a solid rock protruding into the sea, against which the waves break continuously, yet they cannot move it or wear it away. When someone insults you, they are merely revealing the sickness and disorder within their own mind. They are not defining your worth unless you foolishly choose to adopt their judgment as your own. If the criticism is true, use it to correct your course. If it is false, it is of no concern to you, as it belongs entirely to the ignorance of the speaker. When you hold your own conscience and your own commitment to virtue as the sole judge of your value, you become entirely immune to the social blackmail that keeps the rest of humanity living in constant, agonizing fear. This immunity allows you to face the inevitable hardships of life with an entirely different perspective, transforming every single obstacle into raw material for your own personal growth. The Stoics pioneered the concept of amor fati, the unconditional love of one's fate, which dictates that we should not merely tolerate adversity, but actively embrace it as a necessary crucible for forging greatness. Marcus Aurelius beautifully summarized this mindset by stating that the impediment to action advances action, and what stands in the way becomes the way. Just as a fire consumes everything you throw into it, using the debris to grow brighter and burn hotter, the disciplined mind consumes misfortune, betrayal, illness, and failure, converting them into fuel for wisdom and resilience. When you are abandoned by friends, you are given the perfect opportunity to test your self-reliance. When you are struck down by financial loss, you are forced to discover the wealth of a simple, untroubled mind. When you encounter malice, you are granted a chance to practice patience and forgiveness. Nothing that happens to you is inherently evil unless it corrupts your character. Everything else is simply a test, a lesson, and a blank canvas upon which you can paint your own virtue. Think deeply about the profound freedom that comes from completely severing your dependence on the external world. Most people are perpetual emotional refugees, desperately seeking shelter in the approval of their peers, the comfort of their possessions, and the predictability of their circumstances. They are terrified of being alone because when the noise stops, they are forced to confront the emptiness and chaos within their own souls. But when you actively step into that solitude, when you willingly sit with your thoughts and dismantle your illusions, you discover that the only true security in this universe exists within your own reasoned mind. You realize that you do not need a massive circle of friends to be complete. You do not need continuous applause to know your worth, and you do not need a life free of pain to find deep, unshakable tranquility. You become entirely self-contained, a sovereign state within yourself, capable of experiencing joy without dependency and facing sorrow without despair. This internal sovereignty is precisely what makes you dangerous to a world that thrives on your compliance. A consumer society requires you to feel inadequate so that it can sell you cures for your manufactured loneliness. A political apparatus requires you to be easily frightened and outraged so that it can direct your anger toward its own convenient targets. Social circles often require you to be small, predictable, and compliant so that they do not have to feel uncomfortable about their own stagnation. When you choose to stand alone, when you declare that your mind belongs to you and you alone, you break every single one of these invisible chains. You can no longer be bribed with cheap luxuries. You cannot be intimidated by threats of ostracization, and you cannot be easily panicked by the headlines of the day. You become a free agent in a world of captives, a clear-eyed observer watching a crowded room full of blind men stumbling over themselves. Let this truth sink into your consciousness, that your ability to endure and master solitude is the exact measure of your personal power. The next time you find yourself alone, do not reach for your phone to drown out the silence with mindless distractions. Do not seek out company simply to avoid the weight of your own existence. Instead, lean into that stillness. Face the discomfort, examine the anxieties that arise, and dismantle them one by one, using the sharp blade of reason. Treat your mind as a sacred temple that must be guarded ruthlessly against the pollution of worldly trivialities. Remember that the greatest thinkers, emperors, and warriors in human history were not formed in the comfort of endless socialization, but in the lonely, demanding crucibles of isolation, contemplation, and self-examination. By learning to be entirely alone, you are not withdrawing from life. You are finally learning how to command it. You are transforming yourself from a fragile reed shaken by every passing breeze into an unyielding mountain of strength, utterly indifferent to the chaos of the world, and completely master of your own destiny. To step into the second stage of this internal transformation, one must master the art of intentional exile, the deliberate act of removing yourself from the crowd to see the world with absolute clarity. The ancient philosophers did not seek isolation out of fear of society, but out of a profound respect for the preservation of their own minds. Seneca warned that every time we spend time in the company of the masses, we return home slightly less virtuous, slightly more compromised, and far more infected by the collective anxieties of the public. The crowd is an infectious entity, unconsciously demanding that you adopt its fears, its petty rivalries, and its superficial desires. When you have the courage to walk away, to step off the track of endless competition and social performance, you break the spell. You begin to realize that the things people fight, lie, and ruin their health for status, titles, luxury, and superficial admiration are nothing more than beautifully packaged illusions. In the quiet theater of your own isolation, these grand worldly prizes shrink down to their true insignificant size, leaving you free to pursue the only metric that actually matters, the unshakable peace of your own soul. This calculated withdrawal grants you a profound psychological advantage that the average person cannot comprehend, because it allows you to observe the human comedy without being swept up in its madness. When you are no longer dependent on the validation of the social group, you can watch their frantic scrambles for attention with the detached curiosity of a scientist studying an alien species. You see the corporate betrayals, the desperate posturing on social platforms, and the agonizing dread of being left behind for what they truly are, a tragic waste of human consciousness. While others are burning through their limited life force, trying to manipulate how they are perceived by people who do not care about them, you are quietly hoarding your energy. You are building skills, fortifying your mind, and anchoring your emotional stability in reality rather than public opinion. This makes you incredibly dangerous to those who thrive on social manipulation, because your lack of desperation deprives them of any leverage over you. You cannot be lured by their promises of inclusion, nor can you be coerced by their threats of exclusion, because you have already proven to yourself that your own company is entirely sufficient to truly maintain this state of psychological invulnerability. You must develop a profound and absolute indifference to both human praise and human condemnation. Marcus Aurelius frequently meditated on the absurdity of fame, asking himself what became of the great men who were once universally celebrated, the emperors, the generals, the brilliant orators of the past. They are all dust and ashes now, completely forgotten, and the people who praised them followed them into the grave shortly after. Why then do we torture ourselves trying to win the approval of people who are just as fragile, confused, and temporary as we are? When someone compliments you, they are merely projecting their current good mood or temporary alignment of interests onto you. It has nothing to do with your objective worth. Conversely, when someone insults or criticizes you, they are simply revealing the unhealed wounds and chaotic state of their own internal world. By treating flattery and insult as identical illusions, you insulate your ego from the violent highs and lows that destroy ordinary lives. You remain a steady, unblinking eye in the center of the hurricane, judging your progress solely by the alignment of your actions with your highest personal standards. This absolute self-reliance prepares you to face the inevitable storms of existence, not with fear or resentment, but with the triumphant spirit of amor fati. The undisciplined mind views adversity as a personal insult from the universe, crying out against the unfairness of illness, betrayal, or financial ruin. The Stoic, however, understands that nature operates on its own grand, indifferent laws, and that complaining about reality is as futile as commanding the sun not to set. Instead of wishing for an easy life, the dangerous individual wishes for an unyielding mind. When a crisis strikes, they do not ask why this is happening to them. They ask how they can use this specific hardship to test and display their virtue. If you are slandered, it is your arena to practice patience. If you face poverty, it is your laboratory to discover how little a human truly needs to be content. If you are abandoned, it is your opportunity to prove that your happiness was never a hostage to external conditions. Every dark turn of fate is viewed as raw psychological currency, a harsh but necessary terrain designed to strip away your remaining vanities and leave behind only that which is genuinely indestructible. Think of the immense, liberating power that comes from completely refusing to participate in the collective outrage and panic that defines modern life. The world around us is meticulously engineered to keep your nervous system in a state of perpetual alarm, cycling endlessly between manufactured anger, envy, and fear. A populace that is constantly distracted and emotionally volatile is incredibly easy to control and exploit. When you choose to step back into silence, when you refuse to give your attention to every passing scandal or digital argument, you stage a radical act of rebellion. You reclaim the sovereignty of your own attention span. You realize that you do not need an opinion on every public debate. You do not need to take a side in every petty conflict. And you do not need to allow external events to dictate your internal weather. Your peace of mind is your most sacred asset, and you guard it with the same ferocity that a king guards the gates of his city. As you deepen this practice of self-containment, you will notice a profound shift in how you navigate the world. You no longer enter rooms seeking to impress others. Instead, you enter them with the quiet confidence of someone who already possesses everything they require. You speak only when your words are more valuable than the silence they break, and because of this, your voice carries an undeniable, authoritative weight. You do not rush to defend yourself against critics, because you understand that trying to convince the ignorant is a form of self-abasement. You do not boast about your achievements or broadcast your plans, because the approval of the crowd has ceased to be your fuel. You work in the dark, refining your craft, strengthening your body, and mastering your impulses, completely content to let your results speak for themselves when the time is right. This is the ultimate evolution of the dangerous individual, the person who has conquered their own internal chaos and is therefore entirely immune to the chaos of the world. They are a living embodiment of the Stoic ideal, a human being who can lose everything external, their wealth, their status, their health, and their social circle, and still stand upright, unbroken and completely at peace. They have discovered that the ultimate fortress is not built of stone, steel, or money, but of a reasoned, disciplined, and unyielding mind. By choosing to embrace solitude, by conquering your fear of being alone, you are not retreating from reality. You are finally conquering it. You are stepping out of the herd, breaking the chains of social dependency, and ascending to a level of personal mastery where no external force can ever diminish your power or disturb your profound, unshakable tranquility.